I was at here, but Rico from StreetScores, and as y'all can see, I'm back home. Really appreciate y'all for supporting all of the videos while I was gone, but I'm back now, and instead of wasting more of y'all time, let's go ahead and get to this video because we got to talk about how the Washington Commanders defensive lineman Jonathan Allen could end up returning this season. We're talking about the 2024 season. Also, we just got an update a couple of minutes ago that Daron Payne is apparently hurt and questionable for this upcoming game against the Saints. Also, we got to talk about some of the unsung defensive line heroes that we've had since Jonathan Allen's been hurt. Really, it's just an entire interior defensive line video. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting the videos while I was out of town. I didn't have all of the editing software. I didn't have the dogs at the bottom left. I didn't have the HD camera, and y'all was still pulling up and supporting the videos. So y'all are the real ones. I salute y'all for real, and make sure you pull up for the upcoming live stream for this Saints game. I will be live streaming all 4 quarters like I typically do with every game. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. Alright, so all of this chaos started when John Com put out an article earlier today at 3:10 p.m. And just to let you know, this is my second time recording this. I recorded the video earlier and somehow the mic was just unplugged or off. I don't know what that was, but either way, it was like slightly unplugged to the point that you couldn't even hear me. So this is my second time running through this. Hopefully I do a better job than I did last time. So just rock with me. Either way, sources say Commanders defensive tackle Jonathan Allen could return this season. John Com wrote an article and said Washington Commanders defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, once feared loss for the entire season with a torn pectoral muscle, has not abandoned hope for a return in 2024, according to multiple sources with knowledge of the situation. Remember, Jonathan Allen suffered the injury in a Week 6 loss at Baltimore, and mind you, let's take a few steps back, because I really hope y'all remember that this Jonathan Allen injury would have never happened if the refs didn't hate on the Commanders and throw a random pass interference flag on Benjamin St-Juste, that even though he has not had a good year this year, and I feel like at best he should be our cornerback 4, and I feel like he does deserve a little bit of credit for really being like a cornerback 3 or at best 2, but having to deal with cornerback 1s because nobody else was ready for the test. That's why trading for Marshawn Lattimore is so huge for us. But either way, he's really played like a cornerback 3 or 4 this season, and I mean, it's kind of hard to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's my point of bringing all of that up. But at the same time, that was not a pass interference, and so remember, it was 3rd and long, right? We forced an incompletion, I believe, and we just think the punt return team about to come onto the field. We're about to get back on offense and potentially, take a lead in the game or something like that. But it's an entire 14-point swing, I guess you could say, if you want to be optimistic and assume that our offense that was rolling at that point in time, that could go down there and score a touchdown. Instead of us gaining 7 points, we ended up giving the Baltimore 7 points, which means we technically score-wise lost 7 points. Again, a 14-point swing, and not only was it a 14-point swing because of a phantom pass interference call where the receiver literally fell into Benjamin St-Juste's arms, and the only reason he's making contact with them is because he's kind of like holding them up like, hey man, don't fall on me, you know what I'm saying, don't hurt yourself. He was kind of helping them, if anything. He got penalized for being a helping defensive back. But either way, later on that drive, a few plays later, Derrick Henry ended up running for a touchdown, and on that play, Jonathan Allen ends up getting hurt. If the refs don't make that call with that really terrible call, Jonathan Allen never gets hurt, and he's not out for season, and we probably have him all the way up to this point in the season. And I refuse to believe I know Jonathan Allen was not having a great year, but you can't tell me that having a healthy Jonathan Allen could at the very least make up for the 1-point loss in that difference in that loss that we had against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You just never know. Maybe he would have made a game-saving play. You just never know, And I know I tried to avoid blaming refs for things, but you can easily blame the refs for the fact that we haven't had Jonathan Allen since halfway through Week 6, just to let you know. But continuing with John Com's article, but during surgery, doctors discovered that his muscle was only partially torn, sparking the initial hope for a late season return. Further checkups have at least helped them maintain the belief that a return is possible. If Allen is able to return, it will provide a boost for the Commanders, who are 8-5, as they try to clinch a playoff berth for the first time since 2020. Washington plays at New Orleans, 5-8 on Sunday. And now, granted, we're going to talk about Daron Payne later on in this video. If he's not able to go, it's still no excuses. Like, I mean, even no Jonathan Allen, no Daron Payne, the New Orleans Saints should still be no problem. They don't have their starting quarterback in Derek Carr. They don't have, outside of Alvin Kamara, honestly the most dangerous player, at least when it comes to how our defense is set up, and Taysom Hill, who plays quarterback, tight end, fullback, wide receiver, running back, everything on offense except for offensive line technically, but he will block if he has to. I mean, they don't have him. They have a lot of, they have no receivers. All of their top receivers are hurt. Chris Olave is starting to get back healthy, but he's not going to be able to play against us. I highly doubt it, at least. And then that's not even getting to the defensive side of the ball. So even without Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, we should still be able to beat New Orleans. There's no excuses. I bring all of that to say we should be 9-5 leaving this weekend of football, and getting Jonathan Allen back towards the end of this season or maybe the beginning of the playoffs could be a huge help. Continuing with John Com's article, he said there's no guarantee that Allen will come back, sources said, but he has been working out at the Commander's facility with an eye towards returning by the end of the month. Okay, so by the end of December we're talking, so that means maybe by January we will have Jonathan Allen back. That is very interesting. That, hey man, things could change. Things can happen. I mean, mind you, we play the Eagles December 22nd. We're going to play the Falcons more than likely December 29th or maybe the 28th if they flex us to Saturday for whatever reason. We play the Dallas Cowboys in January. You're telling me that Jonathan Allen could potentially be back for that season, the regular season finale against the Dallas Cowboys, where we got to go in Dallas to get our revenge for the loss that we suffered against them all the way back in week 12 on November 24th, right before Thanksgiving. I mean, hey man, is that the type of time that we're on? Is that a real honest possibility that can happen this season? We gotta see. Again, according to John Com, according to sources, Jonathan Allen could return by the end of this month, which means that, you know, if we're trying to go on a playoff push, that means we should have him for at least like one game. Maybe it'd be nice if we can win some playoff games and he can continue to play, because I'm not gonna lie, man, right now, and we're gonna talk about this a little later, but like with the way that this contract is set up, you know, it would be nice if he can get a few games in to prove to Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn, hey, you may want to keep me around. You may even want to consider extending me. You know, it would save you some cap space, and also you would have me longer term. But as of right now, just how well he did not play, how poorly he played, or I wouldn't even say poorly, but he just wasn't very impactful. But even up to the point that he got hurt, it wasn't like he was his Pro Bowl self and we just lost like an Aaron Donald in his prime when he got hurt against the Ravens. I'm not going to sit here and blame this entire season and all of our losses on the fact that we lost Jonathan Allen. He wasn't that impactful to start the season, but I do want to point out the fact that this defense has been getting better as the season has gone on. And I just feel like with how much better Jeremy Chin has looked, you know, since the past few weeks, since he's finally gotten himself integrated perfectly into the defense. Even the linebackers, Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner, had a bad start the first couple of weeks of this season. And then now we're talking about all pro Louvu and Pro Bowl Bobby Wagner and things like that. I mean, it's just hard to assume. It's really difficult for me to just put Jonathan Allen, cast him away to the side, and assume that everybody else on defense would have gotten better like they did throughout this time, but he would not have if he was still fully healthy this entire season. This entire defense, with a few hiccups, you know, here and there, has genuinely gotten way better these past few weeks compared to what they were the first few weeks of the season. And I just feel like naturally Jonathan Allen would have had the same thing going, because this is a new defensive scheme. I know Jonathan Allen was already here playing for the burgundy and gold, but he wasn't playing for Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. If anything, Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler had a further head start than Jonathan Allen did as far as understanding not only this defense, but what the defense wants from him as well. And so I just feel like naturally, if Jonathan Allen would have never have gotten hurt, he would even be playing better than what we were seeing the first few weeks of the season. That may be an optimistic view, but that's how I see it. Now, continuing with the article, Jonathan Allen was placed on the injured reserve October 16th, and before he could return, Washington would need to open up his 21-day window so he could practice with the team, which is why I know John Kahn is saying that he may be able to return by the end of the month, but there's steps to this. 21-day window first. Remember, when you're on the injured reserve, you will be allowed to practice while staying on the injured reserve and not taking up a 53-man roster spot, limited 53-man roster spot, as long as you're practicing within that 21-day window. And then by the end of that 21-day window, you will have to come up off of that injured reserve and move to the active 53-man roster spot and be ready to play in a game. Since we haven't started that 21-day window, I don't think that he's just magically 22 days away from playing right now. So they're saying by the end of the month, but I gotta see it to believe it. Until that 21-day practice window is open, I'm not believing anything as far as Jonathan Allen returning. But my point here in this video is to prove to y'all that Jonathan Allen returning will probably have a more positive impact on this defense and this team than a lot of y'all may think. Because again, those first 5 weeks, generally most of our defense was bad. I mean, we didn't even necessarily know that Mike Sanders still would be this good of an outside corner yet. It's not even just the players learning the defense, it's the defensive coordinators learning the players as well. And I feel like by now Jonathan Allen may have been better. Now, the counterpoint to that is that Daron Payne has not gotten better and he's been healthy all season. So why would we assume Jonathan Allen would have? I just feel like, I mean, naturally, maybe at least he, at some point this season, something would have clicked. He would have fully understood what Joe Wood Jr. and Dan Quinn were asking of him, and maybe something would have he would have figured something out. He would have been balling. I'm not saying that he would have reached his 2022 2021 self when he was going to the Pro Bowl and things like that, but I'm thinking that something better than what we got in those first 5.5 weeks when he was healthy. But either way, continuing with the article, in place of Allen, Washington has started rookie Jazon Newton next to Daron Payne. We're going to get to that soon. Now, in Jonathan Allen's 8th season, Allen has been a key member of the Washington's defense since it drafted him in the first round of the 2017 draft. The 2017 draft. Did I say 2017 draft? Again, excuse me, this is my second time recording this. I'm kind of all over the place. I'm already like thinking about what I'm gonna talk about later because I just talked about it. So excuse any of the mistakes that I made. But either way, he made the Pro Bowl after the 2021 and 2022 seasons when he combined for 16.5 sacks, and he had 2 sacks in 6 games this season up to the point that he got hurt. Now, I do, even though I'm very optimistic, I do need to point out the fact that he got hurt on a play where he got whooped. Like, he got hurt because he got whooped. It's not like he got hurt on some random fluke incident where, oh, he was doing something, he was trying to disengage from a blocker, and then somebody else came out of nowhere and injured him. No, the guy that he was going up against is the one that hurt him because he got whooped that bad. He literally got whooped into an injury. So I'm not trying to sit here and act like Jonathan Allen was Aaron Donald in his prime before he got hurt, but I'm telling you, he will help this defense, even just by the smallest margin, if he's able to return by this season. I'll take any help that we can get. Now, finishing up with the article that John Kahn wrote, he said Jonathan Allen has 1 more year left on his contract after this 2024 season. He has a 2025 season still in his contract, but there's no guaranteed money. So the Commanders could save $17 million on their salary cap if they release them, or they could opt to extend them and lower his cap hit. Like I mentioned earlier, the sooner he can get back, the better, so he can show Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr., hey man, you may want to extend me or just keep me in general right now, because again, you can save $17 million in cap space if you just go ahead and cut Jonathan Allen, just cut ties with him. Because the way that this contract is set up right now, he will be a $23 million cap hit next season, right? You can cut him, he'll only take up $6 million worth of dead cap. Again, none of his money is guaranteed, but it's just like a weird contract set up to where they just kind of backloaded it a little bit. So even after cutting him, he will still take up $6 million worth of dead cap on your cap space, but $17 million additional dollars for Adam Peters to play with in the offseason. Maybe you can incorporate that in like a T. Higgins contract of, for those of y'all that may want to sign T. Higgins in the offseason. You never know. Maybe to replace Jonathan Allen with a younger, better interior defensive lineman. You just never know. But in my personal opinion, I feel like we already have enough cap space to do what we want to do next year. We were second in cap space before we traded for Marshawn Lattimore, and even after trading for him, we were still like 4th or 5th because Marshawn Lattimore isn't getting paid anywhere near as much money as a player of his caliber should be getting played. So we have him on the fairly cheap deal as well compared to like how good I'm expecting him to be for us. So we have plenty of cap space in my opinion. I don't feel like we need that $17 million that bad to where you cut Jonathan Allen, but this team does have the option to do so. So the sooner that Jonathan Allen can get back and defend his name and defend his honor to prove to the Joe Wood Jr. and Dan Quinn and Adam Peters and these guys that I should be here and I should be a part of this future team that you're building, this future Super Bowl contender, the better. Because as of right now, if Jonathan Allen doesn't play for us again at all this season, regular season, postseason, whatever, it's going to look a little ugly. I will be leaning more so towards they may want that $17 million back, Jonathan Allen. I'm not going to lie. I hope he comes back and is able to at least show some flashes of, okay, maybe we need to keep him around next year. Now, maybe not to the point where they extend him long term, even though that would be smart to save some cap and get some of that cap space back, even though you don't cut him for $17 million. Maybe you give him like an extension to where his cap hit, instead of being $23 million for this upcoming year, which makes it technically $23 million annually, you can cut it down maybe to like $16 million annually, especially after having 2 back-to-back not so great seasons. You could probably convince him to restructure his contract into something very team friendly, and you can keep him long term. But either way, I mean, with the injury that he suffered, a torn pectoral muscle, which is kind of one of those things that he may never be 100% what he used to be. Maybe at his healthiest as of right now, he could potentially be like 98% of what he used to be before the pec injury. You know how injuries go, man, especially soft tissue things like that. So I don't know about long term if they like him or not, and maybe he can come back and flash a little bit to where they at least stall and give him just one more year. Hey, just play out the final year of your contract. We'll see. But at the end of the day, everything we just talked about, I mean, nothing honestly will matter if he doesn't come back and look like his 2022 and 2021 self. Well, really, in my personal opinion, his 2022 self was his best version of himself. Even though Pro Football Focus disagrees, they feel like his best season was 2021, but even 2020, they felt like he had an 80.3 overall grade and 84.9 overall grade in 2021. And then in 2022, in my personal opinion, his best year that I remember, at least from watching the tape and everything like that. I vividly remember him being better in 2022 than even 2021 and 2020, in my opinion. But he had an 80.1 overall grade there, which is the 3rd highest out of those 3 great seasons. But since then, 2023, a 59.7 grade, and then up until the point that he got hurt this year, a 53.5 overall grade, with abysmal run defense grades back-to-back seasons for 2023 and up to the point that he got hurt in 2024, with a 39.9 this year and a 37.9 last year, which means a complete liability when it comes to run defense. Also, poor tackling grades in the 40 grade area as well, 49.9 and a 46.5 respectively for those 2 different years. So again, I don't typically agree with Pro Football Focus on a lot of things, but I think, even though I feel like 2022 was better than 2021 and 2020, I disagree with that. But overall, I do feel like the main point is Jonathan Allen was great 2020 through 2022, and then 2023 he fell off, and then 2024 he never really bounced back quite the way that I thought that he should have. But again, I feel like he deserves some grace, because if Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin can all get off the slow starts, and then as the season goes on, they start to figure out where they fit in and get better as the season continues and everything like that, I feel like Jonathan Allen deserves a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But again, the counter argument to that is Daron Payne. But either way, I mean, if Jonathan Allen could just meet us halfway, like, you don't have to necessarily be your 2022 self, but just be somewhere in between your 2022 self and your 2023 self. Please, just meet us somewhere in the middle, please. Plus, get Marshawn Lattimore back healthy, actually, well, not even back, but him finally playing for us. By the time Jonathan Allen, if he does play for us this season, Marshawn Lattimore would have had a few weeks under his belt of learning his defense. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not only just Marshawn Lattimore learning the defense, it's the defense and the defensive coaches learning him. It's the defensive players around him learning him. In panic situations where you don't have time to think, you got to be instinctual, that people need to know, you know, it's not even just verbal communication, it's just history with each other and chemistry, to where in a certain situation, what would Marshawn Lattimore think right here? And I'm gonna base what I do off of that. You know, that's gonna take time, experience, and nuance. That's not something we're just gonna immediately have as soon as Marshawn Lattimore steps onto that field for us against the New Orleans Saints. But by the time Jonathan Allen gets back, Marshawn Lattimore hopefully looks like he's been on this team for over a year, longer than just a few games. So Marshawn Lattimore healthy, balling out for us at corner, and then Jonathan Allen potentially returns for us. I think even if it's just a marginal positive advantage and help to our defense, I think it will be enough to maybe put us over the top and maybe win a playoff game or two. We'll see. I think this defense could be something serious with a healthy Jonathan Allen, looking at least somewhat like his 2022 self, and Marshawn Lattimore, after a few games under his belt to learn the defense, I'm telling you. But I also want to take the time to salute and make sure y'all don't sleep on the guys that stepped up in Jonathan Allen's place this season while he's been out, man. Because, I mean, ignoring Carl Davis, because like Pro Football Focus feels like he's been our best interior defensive lineman, but at the same time, man, the guy has only played 14 snaps for us. So he has a 75.2 overall grade, which would put him in like the top 15 defensive linemen in the entire NFL. I don't agree with that because, I mean, he's only played 14 snaps, and maybe you can make the argument that he should play more, but we're going to ignore that. You know, Pro Football Focus be tripping sometimes. But either way, Sheldon Day, even though he's not ranked, he's our highest graded interior defensive lineman outside of Carl Davis, who only played 14 snaps. Sheldon Day has played 177 snaps, and if you watch those games, he's been the most impactful and memorable defensive lineman on this team, especially interior defensive lineman wise. Like compared to Daron Payne, even Johnny Newton, he flashed early on, like the first couple of weeks after Jonathan Allen got hurt. Johnny Newton was flashing. Since then, it's been the Sheldon Day show. He's been the one that I've noticed on the field more often, making plays and impacting the game. But he hasn't played enough snaps to be given like a ranking from PFF. So the guy with the highest ranking on our team with a 59.5 overall grade is Daron Payne. Jonathan Allen is 82nd out of 125 defensive linemen with a 53.5 grade, even though he hasn't played since week 5. But Daron Payne is ranked 54th out of 125 defensive linemen. John Newton is ranked 105th out of 125 defensive linemen. I definitely push back and disagree with that, even though he hasn't developed and he hasn't matured into like an extremely impactful defensive lineman up to this point in the season like I thought he would, but I don't think he's been that bad. And then Fedarian Mathis is ranked dead last, 125 out of 125 interior defensive linemen that can be ranked by Pro Football Focus by playing enough snaps. And I mean, with him being a healthy scratch the past couple of weeks, I guess Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. agree there, even though I thought Fedarian Mathis was flashing. You know what I'm saying? I started to notice him on the field. But just to go back to Sheldon Day real quick, outside of Carl Davis, our highest graded interior defensive lineman with that 62.5 overall grade, that would have him ranked 45th out of all interior defensive linemen in the NFL. So shouts out to him coming off of the practice squad and holding it down and having an impact for this defense since Jonathan Allen's been out. Well, not literally since Jonathan Allen's been out, because he didn't start playing for us until just like a few weeks ago, but since he's been here, he's mattered. And my point is, even though Johnny Newton hasn't been as great as I hoped up to this point in the season, especially based off of the flashes that we were seeing soon after Jonathan Allen got hurt, I still feel like Johnny Newton and Sheldon Day deserve a significant amount of snaps and part of the rotation, even if Jonathan Allen does return and is fully healthy. I feel like those guys deserve it. They are kind of somewhat unsung heroes, especially Sheldon Day's case, since Jonathan Allen's been hurt, holding it down for the interior defensive line. Because sadly, Daron Payne hasn't necessarily been holding it down as much as we'd hope. And which takes me to the next part of this video. Apparently, with the final injury report for this upcoming Commanders versus Saints game, and I'm going to cover the entire injury report in another video, Daron Payne was listed as questionable for that game with a back issue that came out of nowhere. He wasn't on the injury report Wednesday or Thursday. Suddenly Friday, he has a back issue. And it was so bad he didn't even participate in Friday's practice. So now he's questionable. That is not a good sign leading up to this game. So we may be without Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. Well, we definitely will be without Jonathan Allen, but we're more than likely, I mean, the way it's looking, we may be without Daron Payne against the Saints as well, which is going to be ugly as far as stopping the run. But at the same time, on one hand, Daron Payne hasn't been that impactful, even though you still prefer to have as many veteran bodies in that interior defensive line as possible. And at the same time, the Saints, like I brought up earlier, are so hurt that it doesn't matter. No Daron Payne, no Jonathan Allen, no even a few more people. We should still go to New Orleans and beat those Saints. I mean, Alvin Kamara is like dealing with a serious illness right now. Even if he does play, he's probably not going to be 100%. And with all of the offensive injuries that they have, just focus on stopping Alvin Kamara and we should have no problems there. Now, shouts out to James Dutko of Rigo's Rag. He brings up a good point. He brought up a couple of defensive linemen that are some free agents right now available. You can sign them off the street that could potentially help us moving forward. And I believe he put this article out before we even found out Daron Payne was hurt. So, hey, man, shouts out to him for the fortune telling right there. But either way, he brings up Al Woods as a really good run stopper up the middle, 6'4", 300 pounds. And then you have Rasheem Green as an edge rusher that may be able to come in and help contribute as far as off the edge and pass rush wise. And I don't want to just read off that entire article. Make sure you go check out the article. I don't want to steal his content or anything like that, but just some names to keep in mind. Al Woods, maybe Rasheem Green. Maybe we take a look at some of those guys if Daron Payne is not able to go, or maybe that just means that guys like Johnny Newton and Sheldon Day, even Carl Davis and Fedarian Mathis, who's been a healthy scratch the past couple of weeks, maybe they just play a lot more in place of Daron Payne and also with Jonathan Allen out, of course, as well. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Man, really appreciate y'all. Salute to anybody. I mean, if you made it this far in the video, you are the GOAT. Salute to you. Really appreciate that. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. Do not leave this video without leaving a like. And also, man, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Of course, like the whole Jonathan Allen situation. Do you feel like getting them back at the end of the season will have a positive impact on his defense? Or are you just like, it's just Jonathan Allen. He wasn't that good for the past year and a half. It wouldn't really matter anyway. Let me know how you feel about that whole situation. How you feel about Daron Payne potentially being hurt going against the Saints, and if that will have a huge negative impact, and if you feel like that it drastically decreases our chances of winning that game. I don't, but let me know how y'all feel about both of these Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne situations, and who do you feel like will step up in place of Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne if Daron Payne is not able to go against New Orleans Saints, between Sheldon Day, Johnny Newton, Fadarian Mathis, or even Carl Davis, or maybe somebody we can sign off of the street. Let me know how you feel about all of that and more. I really appreciate that. Again, do not leave this video without leaving a like. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.